This is Hustler Rip Rogers. You're listening to the Dave Dynasty Show.
My little itty-bitty bruiser buddies.
United States heavyweight champion, Brazil. The world's heavyweight champion from the AWA, Nick Bockwinkel.
The Midwest supporting, bruiser loving, positivity spreading, world's most dangerous podcast. Join former pro wrestler and promoter Dave Dynasty as he supports and promotes Midwest pro wrestling. Keep on growing with the Midwest Express. This is the Dave Dynasty Show.
Hello there, diehards, and welcome to the Dave Dynasty Show. I am Dave Dynasty. Greetings, and thank you for joining us again for another free episode of the best Midwest wrestling podcast out there. We have a great show for you today as we talk about the women of the WWA, or at least four of the most prominent women that were ever featured in Dick the Bruiser and Wilbur Snyder's WWA. We have John Lawson on to talk to you about Cora Combs, Debbie Combs, Princess Jasmine, and Miss Bunny Love. This is great because it's a slice of the WWA history and wrestling history that is often not dove into and talked about. So we're very excited to bring that to you. We also have Brian Cannon again on from Ohio Valley Wrestling Mania, OVW Mania, to talk about Ohio Valley Wrestling and give his OVW report from the latest TV show that aired from Louisville, Kentucky. So that is great to hear from Brian again and giving him. Now, if you follow me on social media, and you very much should, you know that I have a big life change coming ahead. That's right. The mouth of the Midwest is leaving the Midwest. I have taken a new position at my work, and I will be moving to North Carolina in the near future. Now, all we need to talk about is this is a great opportunity for me. I'm very, very excited to be making this move and this career change. But obviously, everybody wants to know, how does that affect the Dave Dynasty Show? Well, honestly, it doesn't. The Dave Dynasty Show will continue on, and it will continue on in the same format as it does now. We will still be discussing Midwest wrestling, still be interviewing lots of current Midwest wrestling stars. We will be diving into the Midwest wrestling history, because that's my passion. That is still, I've spent 44 years in the Midwest. This is what I've grown up on, and that doesn't change. So no frets there. The only thing that you might see, actually, there's kind of two little things. One is there might be a little sporadic gap here. As I transition, as we move, we have a lot going on, a lot of balls in the air. This is a very fast-moving bus here to get us moved. So you might see a couple weeks here and there, or a month or so, where maybe we don't have any episodes. Once we get down there, I get settled, everything will get back on the normal rotation. But we're going to try not to miss too much, obviously. And second, there is the chance, and I don't know this for sure, I have to see when I get down there. There is the chance that you will see the occasional special episodes, side episodes, if you will, in the feeds, where maybe I dive into Carolina wrestling a little bit, right? I will be there. I will be attending some shows, and there's obviously a huge history there. So maybe I'll do some things here and there. And again, that'll just be on the side. It will not be replacing the normal programming we have here on the Dave Dynasty Show featuring Midwest Wrestling. So no fears there. But who knows? Maybe I will broaden our scope here on the Dave Dynasty Show again occasionally to discuss some stuff from that region. We'll see on that one. But again, everybody, thank you for all your feedback, your congratulations online. It means a lot to me. I really do mean it. Again, this is an exciting move. I'm a little sad to be leaving the Midwest because, like I said, born and raised here in Indiana my entire life, 44 years. So this is my first venture outside the state. But it is very exciting. This is a good career move for me. Again, you as a listener of this podcast, it really has no effect outside of you might have a week or two here in the next month or so that you won't have an episode to listen to, and I apologize for that. But this is a great episode. This is episode 150. We've hit a little milestone here where we discuss the women of the WWA. Let's just get right to it. Let's take our break, and when we come back, we will have John Lawson on with the meat of the matter here, the heart of the matter of this episode. John Lawson, former ringside photographer, fanzine publisher. He is on to discuss the four most prominent women in our eyes in the history of the WWA. So stick around. hey, make sure you visit DaveDynasty.com. That is your central hub for everything within the world of the Dave Dynasty Show. From there, you can find links to follow us on all of our social media accounts. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course YouTube, which you will want to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have lots of classic wrestling, every episode of the podcast, and other exclusive features there. While you're at DaveDynasty.com, check out the links to help financially support the show. That is how we keep this free every week. You can go to ProWrestlingTees.com/The Dave Dynasty and buy a shirt to help us out. PayPal.me/The Dave Dynasty to make a one-time financial contribution. Patreon.com/The Dave Dynasty to make ongoing monthly contributions. Or you can click our affiliate links for Amazon.com and HighSpots.com. No additional charge to you, but it helps us out. Thank you for your support, and check out DaveDynasty.com. Complete your experience with The Dave Dynasty Show.
On this week's edition of The Dave Dynasty Show, we take a look at some of the most famous women wrestlers to appear in the WWA. Our online poll featured perhaps the four best known for their work in the WWA: Cora Combs, Debbie Combs, Princess Jasmine, and Miss Bunny Love. The vote to determine who we would feature this week ended up in a tie in votes for Debbie Combs and Princess Jasmine, but the voting was very tight, so I've decided to profile all four this week. Now we must start with Cora Combs, who wrestled in Indiana all the way back to the 1950s, long before the WWA was formed in 1964. Cora wrestled all over the country and was recognized as the United States Women's Champion on a couple of occasions, at a time when the Fabulous Moolah was the longtime Women's World Champion, nearly nonstop from the mid-50s until the early 80s. I cannot recall ever seeing Cora Combs lose a match in the WWA. She was recognized as the world's champion woman wrestler in the WWA, and although there was not a physical championship belt, she defended that title throughout the 1970s, frequently defending against challengers in Indianapolis. At house shows and spot shows in the smaller towns, I'm not sure if they ever billed her as the champion, but she wrestled throughout the circuit. Cora never dropped the WWA Women's title, and as she became older, her appearances became less frequent, and eventually the title was never even mentioned again. Thus, Cora is the only women's champion that we ever had in the WWA. And I will talk about her most famous title defense in this report just a little bit later. If you're a frequent listener to the Dave Dynasty Show, you may already be aware that my father worked for the Indiana State Athletic Commission. That was a position that he started in 1956 and continued until 1980, shortly before the state abandoned their regulation of wrestling. He became friends with the likes of the Bruiser, Wilbur Snyder, the Sheik, Dr. Big Bill Miller, Bobby Heenan, and so many others that he'd share stories with us. And out of all of the women wrestlers, the one that he spoke the most highly of was always Cora Combs, who he felt was not only a great wrestler who could handle herself in any situation, but also a very nice person. I met Cora and Debbie Combs for the first time in 1974 or 75, right here in Terre Haute. After I was old enough, I always attended the Terre Haute matches with my father, and usually my mother and older brother would go too. I enjoyed going as a family, but there were a few times that my brother and mother would not be able to attend, so that meant that it was just my father and me. Looking back, those were some incredible times that could not be duplicated. In 1974, I would have only been 11 years old, and my father, being the protective parent that he was, would not let me sit in the stands by myself. Since he was working the shows to ensure that everyone was licensed and that the state would collect their proper 5% of the gate and that the performers would be able to pass a quick physical examination by the appointed doctor, he would take me with him to the dressing room. Now, the matches during this time were always held at the National Guard Armory near the Indiana State University campus, although during the summer months they would sometimes be held outdoors at the fairgrounds or at other air-conditioned venues. At the Armory, the locker room was in the basement, but there was not a separate dressing room for the women wrestlers. Instead, they used one of the offices on the main floor, and this is where I met Cora Combs and her daughter Debbie for the first time. Cora could not have been nicer, and Debbie was just a teenager who would be wrestling in the state of Indiana for the very first time, meaning that she needed to be licensed first. My father had the paperwork for the license, and I recalled that the commission rules were that anyone competing in the ring, whether they were a wrestler, a boxer, a manager, a referee, or anything involved in the business, had to be 18 years of age to obtain a license, and that would be renewable every 2 years. If you were under 18, but at least 16 years of age, you could be licensed if your parent or guardian would sign a waiver. Plus, you had to have a birth certificate proving that you were at least 16 years of age. Cora signed the waiver, but when asked about the birth certificate, said, "Oh, we don't have that with us." I remember Debbie stood by, listening intently, but not saying a word. They were still in their street clothes at this time, since it was before the matches had even started. I cannot think of any other instances where someone was going to perform in Indiana in the ring that was not yet 18, but the commission rules were that the inspector was supposed to validate the license based on the birth certificate. Now, there are records that show that Debbie is presently 60 years of age, with an April 1959 birth date. My father went ahead and licensed her that night, and Cora Combs wrestled her daughter Debbie in the second match of a 4-bout card. Debbie did not wrestle as Debbie. Instead, she donned a black mask and went under the name of Lady Satan and was pinned by her mother. There's a little bit of irony about this match that I will get to later, about that name, Lady Satan. Now, based on the events that took place that night and the conversation on the ride home with my dad that night, I believe that Debbie was probably under 16 when she wrestled here for the first time. My dad told me that he wouldn't be surprised if she was only 15, but as a favor to Cora, as well as the promotion owners Bruiser and Snyder, and our local promoter Ralph Hamilton, he didn't want to push the issue, which would have caused the match to be canceled, and the fans then would have only had a 3-match card. The other reason that I think Debbie may have been underage at that time is that she did not appear on any of the Indianapolis shows for a few more years. At the big shows in Indianapolis, they would almost always assign 2 members of the athletic commission to work the shows together, meaning there were additional checks and balances to the paperwork, plus the head of the athletic commission would also frequently attend those matches. It could be a coincidence that Debbie was not booked in Indy for quite a while after this, but Cora was still making appearances without her there. The head of the commission liked to be put over by being introduced to the live audience. Plus, if he saw something that he didn't like, he would fine or threaten to fine the wrestlers or the promotion, or would change the rules, sometimes for the better, such as when he required the ringside area immediately surrounding the ring to be roped off and later barricaded, but other times he had rules that I really thought were not necessary, something we may discuss in a future edition of this program. By around 1977 and 1978, Debbie Combs became a frequent wrestler on the WWA shows. And as you recall, Debbie started her career in the WWA wearing the mask as Lady Satan. That was done for 3 reasons. 1, so that people would not see the mother-daughter resemblance when she wrestled her mother. 2, to cover up her age. The third reason would be that she was an attractive young woman, which would have made her a natural babyface in the ring. But she was needed to be as a heel, since Cora was the perennial fan favorite. I mentioned the irony earlier about Debbie wearing the mask as Lady Satan when she started. By this point in the 70s, though, by the late 70s, the roles had reversed. Debbie was now the popular babyface, while Cora, who'd wrestled for 25 or 30 years, now found that it was time for her to wear the mask, using the name, you guessed it, Lady Satan. The hood again covered up the resemblance of the two when they worked against one another, plus the famed Cora didn't have to wrestle as a heel in front of the longtime fans. And it also served as a means to hide her age. Now, I'd mentioned that Cora never lost as Cora Combs, but she did lose matches as Lady Satan. As the typical rule was that the women wrestlers would usually have the baby face go over, although there were a few exceptions to that over the years. Cora Combs is also notable for being one of the wrestlers involved in the first women's wrestling match in the state of New York when the ban on women's wrestling was finally lifted in 1972. It seems so strange to think that women's wrestling would be banned in the state of New York that recently in history, but that really was the case. Next, let's talk about Princess Jasmine, real name Cynthia Peretti, from Chicago, Illinois. And according to Wikipedia, Princess Jasmine was trained by Dick the Bruiser and Prince Pollins back in 1968. I have doubts that Bruiser did much training, but I know for a fact that Prince Pollins was the main trainer for many years in Indianapolis, and I'm certain that he was Princess Jasmine's primary trainer. Bruiser is likely the one that gave her the name Princess Jasmine. As African-American wrestlers, they were both billed from Jamaica, as were a number of black wrestlers in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And with one being Prince and the other being Princess, many fans in the WWA thought they were husband and wife, or were at least a couple, but to my knowledge, they never even dated. Princess Jasmine became as equally popular as Cora Combs in the WWA. They even teamed up a few times in Indianapolis and always came out on top in their matches. In 1974, Jasmine was placed in her highest profile match in the WWA when she was matched against the women's champion, Cora Combs, in Indianapolis for the title. My brother and I always knew that the business was a work, but when that match was announced on TV and being on the next card in Indianapolis, we both thought that it was going to be a title change. But that wasn't the case, as Cora won the match, and the only time that I ever saw a scientifically wrestled match between women wrestlers. They shook hands before and after the match. And that was the first time that I ever saw Princess Jasmine lose a match, and I only saw her lose one more match in the WWA, which I will get to shortly. Princess Jasmine is also credited, or perhaps blamed, depending on your point of view, for training the lady wrestlers in Glow, the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, the all-women's promotion that was started in the mid-1980s by Indianapolis native David McLean, who had been a ringside photographer in the 70s and 80s before supplanting Sam Menaker as the TV announcer and general manager for Championship Wrestling, the corporate name of the WWA. She even made some TV appearances in Glow as Pepper in the duo of Salt and Pepper, not to be confused by the rap group Salt and Pepper, unless you wanted to be confused, something that I'm sure McLean had hoped for. Princess Jasmine retired after working a little while for McLean's follow-up promotion, POW, the Powerful Ladies of Wrestling, and unfortunately passed away from cancer at age 60 a decade ago in 2009 at nearly 61 years of age. Our final profile is a friend of this show, Bunny Burmeister, better known to wrestling fans as ringside valet and manager and sometimes wrestler Miss Bunny Love. In 1979, Bunny began dating wrestler Golden Boy Paul Christie when she would have been only about 18 or 19 years of age. In Christie's self-published autobiography, The Many Faces of Paul Christie, the Golden Boy discusses how they met, which eventually resulted in his marriage coming to an end. And they were eventually married, and they're still together to this day, 4 decades later. Miss Bunny was traveling the shows with Christie so they could spend more time together. So Paul decided to make her his valet, and Bruiser agreed to it, making her one of the trailblazing women wrestling managers in all of wrestling in 1979, something that would become somewhat commonplace a few years later with the likes of Sunshine and World Class, Dark Journey in the Mid-South, and Baby Doll in WCW, among several others in the 80s. Christie and Bunny became a self-styled Bonnie and Clyde of pro wrestling, both usually wearing black ring attire or jackets. At first, Bunny would just walk to the ring with Christie, and after the introductions, would sit quietly at ringside. As a teenager, I'm sure she was a nervous wreck, but she was also a heat magnet for the fans, just because of the way she looked and because she was appearing with Paul Christie, the man that had turned heel on fan favorite Spike Huber. As she learned more about the business and gained confidence, Bunny began to interfere in matches by distracting the referee or speaking to Christie through the ropes. Occasionally, Christie would do the chicken poop heel spot, where he'd hide behind Bunny, preventing the babyface opponent from touching her, since they would not do anything as drastic as lay a hand on Bunny. When Paul Christie and Paul teamed up with Roger Kirby and held the WWA Tag Team title, they actually had 2 managers, Miss Bunny, as well as the Reverend Tiny Tim Hampton. After about a year of managing, Miss Bunny stepped into the ring as a wrestler against other area women wrestlers such as Alice Cooper and Crystal Lynn, and occasionally teaming with Christie in mixed tag team matches. Miss Bunny's highest profile singles match was in Indianapolis in 1981 when she wrestled Princess Jasmine in a $1,000 challenge, where both wrestlers put up $1,000 in wrestling money in a winner-take-all match. Miss Bunny scored the win in an upset in what I believe was Princess Jasmine's final match in Indianapolis, and that was only the second loss of a match that I know of that Princess Jasmine had in the WWA. The name Miss Bunny Love has to be co-credited to Paul Christie and my father, Robert Lawson, of the Athletic Commission. When she was starting out, Christie was trying to think of a complete name for her, instead of just calling her Bunny or Miss Bunny, which would have been fine, but my father suggested calling her Miss Bunny Love, and Christie loved it, and the WWA ran with it. To conclude this report, I'd like to mention the names of a number of other women wrestlers that competed in the WWA in the 1960s throughout the early 1980s. This is by no means a complete list, but some of the women that I got to see in the ring included Sandy Partlow, Tanya West, Lucille Dupree, the 350-pound Heather Feather, Cheetah Rivero, Paula Steele, Kathy McCoy, Rita Cortez, Mary Jane Mole, Early Dawn, Marie Laverne, Ramona Isabel, Marva Scott, Alice Cooper, Tina Carr, Crystal Lynn, Rita Fields, Ann Jeanette, Debbie Dahl, Miss X, Madam X, and a handful of others. And lastly, I'd like to mention a well-known female wrestler from Terre Haute that unfortunately I never got to see in person, and that is Toni Rose, who frequently teamed with Moolah and was co-holder of the Women's World Tag Team Championship on a couple of occasions. She got her start in 1963. I understand that she's now living in Texas. If anyone has contact information for her, please reach out to me or Dave Dynasty.
Since 2001, drug companies dumped 1 billion opioid pills in West Virginia, causing over 3,000 overdose deaths and thousands of babies born addicted by no fault of their own. I'm attorney Stephen New. If you're the grandparent or guardian of a child born with neonatal abstinence syndrome, call me. I'll help you seek just compensation.
Call the law offices of Stephen P. New at 1-844-BAD-PILLS before time runs out.
Hey everybody, Brian Cannon here once again from OVW Mania, ovwmania.blogspot.com. And I'm here with the Ohio Valley Wrestling Report on the Dave Dynasty Show. This is for the TV that happened live on Wednesday, September 25th at the Davis Arena here in Louisville, Kentucky. A couple interesting things actually happened before the show. One of them, they've been having this big deal with Dustin Jackson and Randall Floyd being opponents and then having to come together against OVE when they invaded OVW. And they thought Tony Gunn was on OVE's side, and Tony Gunn turned on Sami Callihan. Dustin Jackson and Randall Floyd are still wanting answers, and they call out Tony Gunn. This was a dark match before the show even happened. Tony comes out, and he said he doesn't have to explain himself, but if they're looking for a fight, he'll kick them both in a triple threat match right now. And sure enough, Tony Gunn does come out with the victory. And again, this was an untelevised match, and it was a really good match between the three of them, Dustin Jackson and Randall Floyd. Sometimes we're on the same page, sometimes they were not, and that's what ended up being their downfall as Tony Gunn sneaks out with the victory. On the main show, the television title gauntlet starts off with Amon and William Lutz. Amon is screaming the whole time for Sin Bodhi and wanting to make a statement. He's still not done with Sin Bodhi. He's still not done with the OVW Anarchy title. So he takes out William Lutz with his chain, then takes out Ashton Cove, who comes out next, then takes out EC Diamond, who comes out next. And Corey Storm, the reigning champion, finally comes out, takes Amon out with a super kicks him back through the curtain. And it leaves the last two competitors as your reigning champion, Corey Storm, and Dimes. And this was a 5-star quality match, a very good match between these two competitors. It went back and forth several times, a lot of exchanges early, lots of flips, lots of reversals, a lot of close near falls. But in the end, Dimes goes for the changemaker. Corey catches him and rolls him up for the 3 and gets the victory. So a very close match, but Corey Storm is still your reigning OVW television champion. Starting next week, OVW moves to Tuesday nights live, still from the Davis Arena on WBNA 21 here in the Louisville area. They've announced that all Tuesdays coming forward, they'll be at the Davis Arena, except for they're going to have a big show on Tuesday, October 29th. It'll be at the Bourbon Hall downtown Louisville, and they've already announced that WWE legend Gangrel will be there. And they're calling it Tuesday Night Frightmare, so you can assume they're going to pull out some other surprises between now and then as well. Dean Hill comes to the ring to talk about the annual Nightmare Cup. It's a tag team tournament that OVW has held over the last several years, and usually the winners end up with a shot at the trophy, and sometimes that trophy's been turned into a future tag team title shot. The Legacy of Brutality interrupts Dean Hill. They are the current tag team champions, and they say they should be in it because they are who they are. Dean Hill says they're automatically entered because they are the champions, and that Josh Ashcraft, the leader of the Legacy of Brutality, just wants attention on himself. And he said if they're so gung-ho on this tournament, they're going to start it right now. And he brings out their opponents, which is their bitter rivals, King's Ransom. King's Ransom comes in. They're taking on all four men all over the ring, all over ringside. Legacy of Brutality can never get the upper hand, even with the numbers game. Can't really get their offense going. And the King's Ransom, it's Big Zoe with the King's Landing to get the 3, so they move on in the Nightmare Cup tournament. The finals will be announced at that big show at Bourbon Hall. On Tuesday, October 29th, they will announce the winners that night, the final 2 teams in the tournament. To end the show this week, Justin Smooth came out. He says he has something to say. He said no one can beat him or take his title away. He's the best performer, the best person, the best man in the building. He's a fighting champion, and he's willing to take on anybody, anywhere, anytime who wants to challenge him for his belt. Well, to his surprise, the entire OVW locker room empties, and it's not only superstars, there's referees, everyone surrounding the ring, all wanting a shot at Justin Smooth. And he says, no, everybody misunderstood. I didn't mean tonight. And he tells them to go back to the back and show him the respect he deserves. But he ends up saying, you know what, I'll go ahead and pick one of you to go ahead and fight tonight, one lucky person. And he picks out AJZ, who is a new competitor in OVW. Smooth asks him what his name is and then says, it doesn't matter, kind of rock style. He takes off the title, his watch, his necklace, and turns around into some arm drags, and this match is underway. AJZ is on fire early, gets a slam and a pin for a near 2. For a near 3. But Smooth comes back, but AJZ keeps firing up again, but Smooth ends up getting rolled up with a handful of tights to get the 3, and hightails it out of the ring. Dean Hill comes out, grabs the mic, and tells him next Tuesday night, when they bring back the Tuesday night tradition, he will defend his OVW heavyweight title once again, and Dean Hill, the commissioner himself, will pick Justin Smooth's opponent. All kinds of great things, exciting things happening each and every week. Some of the greatest young talent that has yet to hit the big stage every week at Ohio Valley Wrestling, 4400 Shepherdsville Road, the Davis Arena, legendary Davis Arena in Louisville, Kentucky. Again, if you're in the area, please make a point to be there. Admission is only $7. They've got the big show coming up Tuesday, October 29th at the Bourbon Hall in downtown Louisville. And Al Snow just keeps making it bigger and better every week. You never know who's going to show up. There could be some Impact stars. There could be some legends, some WWE Hall of Famers. We saw Kevin Nash at the meet and greet at the last Ohio Valley Wrestling event down at 4th Street Live. So definitely make a point to be there starting every Tuesday from now on. The Tuesday night tradition returns to Louisville, kind of like they used to have with the Louisville Gardens. That's all I've got for this week. I hope you all have a great week. And until next time, this is Brian Cannon from OVW Mania on the Dave Dynasty Show.
Are you looking for the newest and hottest in the world of pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on PowerSlam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 6,000 hours of the best events from over 150 of your favorite promotions from 20 different countries around the globe. Brands like Progress Wrestling, Evolve Wrestling, Combat Zone, Defy, PCW Ultra, PWX, Over the Top, Shine, and hundreds of others with fresh content added every day for only $5.99 per month. Get your free trial today at PowerSlam.tv.
Just use promo code DYNASTY. If you are looking for the best books, DVDs, and posters on classic wrestling nostalgia, then you want to visit crowbarpress.com. There are literally dozens of titles there, including biographies of the likes of Bruiser Brody, Ole Anderson, Ivan Koloff, and of course, Dick the Bruiser, as we've spoke about here on the Dave Dynasty Show. You want to visit crowbarpress.com for all of your classic wrestling nostalgia needs. Again, that is crowbarpress.com. All right, and thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sticking around. Special thanks to John Lawson for his piece on the women of the WWA, and thanks to Brian Cannon for his OV Mania report. And thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing and sharing and being interactive with us as you are. We try to give you the best free podcast covering Midwest professional wrestling past and present every week. And again, you heard the methods earlier. You can go to PayPal, you can go to Patreon, you can go to Pro Wrestling Tees. And that is how you can support the show and keep it free. And please do so. We have that cool Bruiser Buddy shirt. It's selling really well. So go to ProWrestlingTees.com/The Dave Dynasty. Get you one of those today. Again, there might be a little bit of a sporadic hiatus here for the next month or so. A few episodes, may not be any episodes, maybe just a few episodes. Who knows? I have to see how things roll with us in this move. But we are not going away. We're not going anywhere. We're not changing our format. So no fears. You as a listener, this doesn't affect you. You're good. So stick around with us, and again, follow us on social media. That'll where you can keep up to date with us and what's happening in the timeline of things. And I will continually still be sharing things on social media. So until the next time we speak, which will be soon, do not fret. Be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
OVWWrestlingNetwork.com. It's only $4.99 a month. In between excitement, me too. OVWWrestlingNetwork.com is only $4.99 a month. Want a real value? OVWWrestlingNetwork.com. It's only $4.99. That's a price so low. Well, it's insane.